Hello everybody and welcome to Car Confections. Now today you see what's behind me. This is the all-new 2022 Kia EV6. And what we're going to do today is do an extensive test drive of this model and show you all of the driving impressions. Now you might be curious about some of the other details about this EV6, and we do have a dedicated video on our channel that goes over every single detail of this model, including the charging, all of the exterior design, the interior technology and features. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Alrighty guys, here we are in the all-new Kia EV6, and let's get a first acceleration now that we have all of those specs out of the way. Okay. Wow. And there is 60 miles an hour. Wow. This thing is quick. Now, as you would expect out of an electric car, this thing is very quick. It has 320 horsepower, 446 pound-feet of torque, since this is the all-wheel drive with the larger 77.4 kilowatt-hour battery. But this thing really doesn't disappoint. It is really quick, guys. This is actually quicker than the Hyundai Ioniq, and you can definitely feel that extra power just from behind the seat. That 4.6 seconds 0 to 60, certainly pretty accurate if you ask me. Let's get another acceleration here.
In a quarter mile, turn right onto Alexander Valley Road.
And there's 60 up a hill, so I mean, you really are looking at a very fast product here in this EV6. Take another right here.
Turn right onto Alexander Valley Road. Continue on current road for about 10 miles.
Now, of course, we did already talk about some of these specs, so I'm not going to just go ahead and not going to repeat those. But I do want to talk about some other specific things in this driving impression. So one of the things I'm noticing straight from the start is the AR reality navigation. That's proving to be very useful up here in the head-up display. I know you won't be able to see it from the GoPros here because you have to be looking directly at it, but it does go ahead and overlay those arrows right on top of where you're turning, and that's really quite a cool system, especially to see on a mainstream vehicle like this. Alright guys, it is time to go ahead and talk about the ride quality as well as some other elements about the driving experience in the EV6. Now, I have to just go ahead and point out that this EV6 does have a pretty nice driving dynamic. You know, we're going in this California road here. It's pretty twisty and it feels very planted. It's actually quite an odd experience because you wouldn't expect that out of an SUV with this much cargo space. But the EV6 certainly delivers a really stellar driving experience. You know, just kind of quickly on the steering, it really responds super fast, but it does so in a nice and controlled way. It's not jittery or anything. It just has a quick response. In terms of comparing it to the Ioniq 5, this definitely feels quite a bit sportier than that model. Now, in terms of your ride quality in the EV6, you are going to have a really good ride quality, even though this particular Tesla does have the 20-inch wheels. Here we're about to go over a bridge. I can tell it just soaks up the bumps really quite well. Like I said, it does have a sporty vibe. This reminds me of what the Mach-E has. It doesn't mean it has a bad ride quality. It just means that it is going to have a little bit of a sportier dynamic to it. It still does soak up the bumps really well. Now, this right now is the standard braking regen. So when I let off my foot off the gas, it does slow down somewhat. It's not a ton. Now, you can adjust this by using the paddles that they've included on this model. So we'll do another acceleration here, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. This thing is fast. Oh my goodness. You gotta love it. But let's get back to the brake regen. So if you Tap it up. You're gonna have some less regen, and then if we go on this side, you will have more regen. So there's something called iPedal, and that is the maximum amount of regen. That's gonna give you more of a similar experience to what you'll find in like a Tesla product, where if you let off the gas, I'm using no brake whatsoever, and I'm gonna come to pretty much a full stop. So that is definitely something worth noting, that you can just tailor each different drive mode to whatever you're gonna want. So if you want more regen, you do have that option. If you want less regen, you also have that option as well. It does reset to the normal mode every single time you restart the car. So unlike Tesla, where you pick your different regen mode, you will have to adjust that every single time. However, the normal mode does seem to be about what the average consumer would like. And it looks like we're heading out to some more twisty roads here. So I'm going to go ahead and switch it into sport mode. All right. We were in normal mode the entire time, and sport mode, I can definitely tell that the throttle sharpens up, and just a little bit of input, it's really raring to go. Now, of course, there will be a GT model later this year, but I will say this 320 horsepower EV6 GT line, all-wheel drive, dual motor, really is doing a fantastic job. And I have to say, it's just a joy to drive here on the back roads. I'm gonna get an acceleration up here in sport mode, see how quick it feels. Oh wow, this thing is so quick. Oh, you've just gotta love how this EV6 accelerates, and I can just push it here on this twisty road. You know, we're canyon carving here in California, and it is just an absolute great experience. I have to say, this feels almost like no SUV I've ever been in before, and that's really a great thing, because it makes you forget that you are driving in an SUV. However, you still have all the space of a traditional, you know, SUV. You have 50 cubic feet of cargo space if you need it. You can fit all 4 people back here, and it just works. So what do I think about the EV6 in conclusion and its driving dynamics? I have to say, this vehicle really has impressed me in just the little bit that I've driven it. I mean, these are very tight corners, I tell you, and this EV6 just really feels like a sports car, and I love that, especially here in the sports mode. The steering is so nimble, so precise, and it's just fast. It really is. There's no other way to say it. It's fast. 320 horsepower, 446 pound-feet of torque, put down via all-wheel drive. It does such a good job. And all I have to say is I'm very excited to see the GT model, the performance one, coming out later this year, because it has some awesome bones, and to get even more power, 576 horsepower, excuse me, is just going to be so exciting to me. So overall, I think Kia really nailed the mission here of creating an SUV that's fun to drive. It still has all the practicality, and also it's very efficient, being a full EV. Alrighty guys, it is time to talk about the performance as well as the efficiency of this EV6. Now, of course, this is a very important part about it, and I'm sure you're very curious. Now, like I mentioned earlier at the charge port, you do have 2 different battery sizes. So for the very base light model, that's going to come with the 58 kilowatt hour battery, but every other EV6 will have the 77.4 kilowatt hour battery. So for that standard 58 kilowatt hour model, you will have only rear wheel drive, and you're going to have 167 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque, and you're going to have a range of 232 miles. Now your 0 to 60 for that will be 8 seconds. That is of course going to be the slowest EV6 in the entire lineup. Now, if you don't need all-wheel drive, you can upgrade to the 77.4 kilowatt hour battery and keep the rear drive system, and that's going to be available on the Wind trim and above. And that's going to give you 225 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque, and it's going to give you a range of 310 miles for this EV6. A 0 to 60 on that one is going to be 7.2 seconds. But that is not what we have with us today. We have the all-wheel drive with the 77.4 kilowatt hour battery, which is going to give you quite a bit more power than the rear drive version. So you're looking at 320 horsepower, 446 pound-feet of torque, and that's good to get you to 60 miles an hour in 4.6 seconds. Now the range on that is going to be a little bit above 270 miles. And you're like, Mason, what about that fully loaded Mac Daddy Performance GT model? That is going to be offered on the EV6. You're just gonna have to wait a little bit longer for that. That's gonna have late availability in 2022. So hopefully we will drive that later in the year. And that's gonna have 576 horsepower and go 0 to 60 in less than 3.5 seconds. Well guys, if you made it this far in our video, we really appreciate you. And we would also appreciate if you hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't already. It really helps us out and it doesn't cost you a thing. And it does help us to get to events like this to show you all the coolest products first. So it's really a circular thing here. We get to show you guys the coolest products if you subscribe. So please go ahead and do that. Also follow us on our other social medias like TikTok and Instagram. And we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.